Hello guys, my name is Santiago Ojeda and I'm your teacher. Today we're going to see elements of a narrative slash book, and also we're going to see another topic. It's called timelines. But let's start with elements of a narrative or book. Well, on the covers of physical books, you can find general information such as the type of text it is, informative, narrative, suspense, fantasy, etc. And um, and get a general idea about who the main characters are, where it takes place, and what it is about. Use them to help you select the text you need or want to read. For example, a book always has an author, el autor, author's biography, la biografía del autor, title, título, sinopsis. La sinopsis es como un pequeño resumen de la historia. Year and place of publishing, el año y el lugar donde se publicó el libro. Publishing house, la editorial. Sí. This is the back cover of a book and the front cover. Well, you know this. And colophon is called where the author is with the editorial and where it was printed. For example, this information in here, it's called colophon. It is inside the book. And this is the inside cover with the short biography of the author. Informative texts give information about the topic like the history texts you read in Unit 4. Narrative texts tell stories for entertainment and artistic purposes, and they refer to fictional events and people imaginary, while informative texts refer to people and events that really exist or existed. Textos informativos pueden ser periódico o cualquier otro artículo de algo de la vida real que sea con el objetivo de informar, y narrativa es toda cuento, libro ficticio o historia inventada, como un libro o incluso una película, bueno, pero estamos hablando de textos, pero son ficticios. Stories can be adapted into comics by identifying the main events and presenting them in a sequence of pictures. Comics don't describe characters or actions because we see them in pictures. In narrative texts, we have to imagine what the words say. Comics select important things characters think and say and put them in short sentences inside bubbles. Identifying places, names, and certain objects can help you know where the actions in the story take place and help you notice certain cultural aspects. This can help you understand and enjoy a text better. The main characters appear during the most important events of the story, the main events. Incidental characters do not affect too much the main events and appear only once or occasionally. In narrative texts, there are usually some introduction parts that give background information or explain what happened before the main event. The most important events develop until they reach a climax and conclude. Sometimes there are unexpected events or twists which are common in suspense texts. Main characters: Nikita, Inspector Morley, the Crumpet. Main events: Nikita and Inspector Morley make a plan. They hide in the library and wait. The Crumpet arrives. They capture the Crumpet after a struggle. The identity of the Crumpet is revealed. These are the main characters and main events of a story we will read in a moment. So let's read it. Chapter 2, the finale. Number 1. The Crumpet Cat eluded the authorities for a whole year and had not been caught yet. What's more, exactly a year had passed since the Crumpet's first robbery on December 31st. Since then, the Crumpet Cat already committed 4 thefts, leaving different objects at each site. The first one was a crumpet, and since then, the police gave the thief this alias. Then were left a scone, a bowler hat, and a teacup, all so terribly British. But this time, Inspector Morley and his faithful assistant Nikita were one step ahead. They made a plan to capture the Crumpet in the act. They had received a tip from Scotland Yard, the headquarters of the London police. Apparently, the Crumpet intended to strike again on New Year's Eve at Lord and Lady Byron's New Year's Eve party that gathered the wealthiest and most powerful people in Britain. Paragraph number 2. There were hundreds of guests that evening, all wearing costumes and masks, but more importantly, they were wearing their most expensive jewelry and accessories. There were guests dancing in the ballroom, while others were chatting in the grand hall. Guessing where the crumpet would strike was impossible, but Inspector Morley had a theory. He believed the crumpet would not expose himself by robbing at the actual party, and that instead he would try to steal Lady Byron's valuable tiara from her sale. The detective's plan was to hide with Nikita in the library, where the sale was, to wait for the crumpet to show up. Inspector Morley was hiding behind the curtain while Nikita was hiding under the desk by the sale. Number 3. The clock was announcing the end of the old year and the beginning of the new one when a short, slim figure dressed in black and wearing a mask climbed in through the library window. It was pitch black, but Inspector Morley and Nikita were wearing special night vision eyeglasses. The thief walked up to the sail and was about to open it when Nikita jumped and started struggling with the rover. At that moment, Inspector Morley tapped the crumpet on the shoulder and very politely exclaimed, "So sorry, old fellow," and proceeded to use the tip of his umbrella to spray the robber's eyes with pepper spray. Number 4. The next day, the newspaper headlines were all about the notorious crumpet, but not about the Inspector Morley and Nikita had caught this infamous thief, but about the fact that crumpet turned out to be a she and not a bee, and not a he. To everyone's surprise, all these months it had been a woman evading the authorities all along. So this is a narrative text. Read again the story from exercise 1 and put the number of the paragraph. Number 1. This paragraph describes the climax of the story. This is paragraph number 3. Normally the climax always go before the ending. The climax is where the main events may happen or where the action, the most action scenes take place. So let's put number 3, paragraph number 2. Number 2, this paragraph concludes the story with a twist. Well, the conclusion, the thief was not a man, it was a woman. Paragraph number 4. Number 3, this paragraph provides some background information. Well, this is the first one because it is telling us what happened before the main story that starts in paragraph number 2. So paragraph number 1 is the one that provides some background information. And number 4, this paragraph sets the scene. Well, it's number 2. It's where the story of this narrative begins. Now let's see timelines. This is a narrative timeline. Do you know Star Wars? Have you watched the movies? It all starts with the Phantom Menace, then it goes with Attack of the Clones, the Clone Wars, Revenge of the Sith, well, this movie of Solo, Star Wars Rebels, A New Hope, Rogue One, and The Empire Strikes Back. This is the chronological order, el tiempo cronológico en el que sucede cada película o cada historia. Una timeline es una línea del tiempo en la que esta es la primera película y vamos viendo cómo va pasando el tiempo hasta la última. Making timelines is a way to determine the main events and the order in which they happen. This will help you understand the story better. Timelines don't include background information or details, just the main events that happen. Always main events in a timeline. Work in pairs. Read the events from the story in exercise 1 and identify which ones are placed in the timeline. This gives why some events listed don't appear in the timeline. Well, if they don't appear, like I said, it's because they are not main events. So these are some of the events. We have many of the events in here of the story we just read, but in a timeline we only put the main events. For example, at first, the first thing that happened was the crumpet had eluded the authorities for a whole year. Then, second, Inspector Morley gets a tip from Scotland Yard and makes a plan with Nikita. Number 3, the crumpet and Nikita struggle and Morty sprays pepper gas on the robber's eyes. Number 4, the crumpet's identity is revealed. This is the ending, beginning to end. Remember, timelines also can have images. It's better if it has some graphics in here. That's it for today, guys. I hope to see you in the next video. Bye.